Okay, ladies and gentlemen, you'll probably recognize this picture from this slide. This is my midterm review. I'm reposting it here for you to help get you ready for the final exam. So this review will cover units 1 through 9, and then in video 2 I cover units 10, 11, and 12. Again, you're going to want to go through both of these videos very carefully to make sure that you are ready for the final exam, which will cover the entire semester. Um, I will give you more information about that when it's ready, but it will be similar to your quizzes, just a longer one. So please enjoy this review. Okay, in Unit 1, we did introductions. We learned how to introduce ourselves and each other. Part of that was learning about nationalities and adjectives for nationalities with countries. So I'm American, you are Korean, my friend is Chinese, etc. We also reviewed the verb to be, right? I am, you are, he, she is, we are, they are. So, for example, my friends are from Poland, they are Polish. We also reviewed the article and un, and that was very useful in describing our jobs or saying what we do. So, for example, I am a professor, you are a student, my father is an engineer. And we talked about WH questions, right? Who, what, when, where, why, and how. Useful when meeting new people to ask questions to find out about them. Questions like, what's your name? Where are you from? What do you do? Etc. And so overall, we learned how to introduce ourselves and also introduce others. So that was Unit 1. Then we moved into Unit 2, which was about, do you remember Unit 2? What was Unit 2 about? That's right, work and leisure. Work and leisure. So for this unit, we focused on talking about days, months, and dates. In particular, we focused on prepositions, using the right preposition with those. So on Monday, for example, or on January 2nd, at night, on the weekend, etc. We talked about leisure activities, what you do for fun when you are not working or studying. So you might think about hobbies, things you like to do when you have free time. And for grammar, we use the present simple to describe what you do either at work or at play. So these are things you usually do or generally do, so we use the present simple for that. So for example, I attend meetings every Monday, or I play basketball with my friends on the weekend. Finally, we discussed adverbs of frequency to tell how often you do something. So for example, I always attend meetings on Monday morning, or I usually play basketball with my friends on the weekend. So that covers units 1 and 2. And next we'll move into unit 3. In unit 3, we discussed problems. That's right, problems, especially problems you might have at work. And we used to and enough. So if there's too much of something, use to, and if something is lacking, you use enough. So for example, my boss is too strict, or I don't have enough time, or my salary is too low, or I don't make enough money. And we did present simple with negatives and questions. So for example, my colleague doesn't come to work on time, or where do you work? Where do you work? And so that verb do is important for these types of sentences. And last for grammar, we did have and some and any. Have and some and any. So, do you have a problem? We have some problems. Do you have any meetings today? No, I don't have any meetings. Like that. For our discussion portion, we talked about how to solve problems, and specifically on the phone. So there's something wrong, and you're going to state what the problem is, give details, and try to find solutions. All right. Pop quiz. What was Unit 4 about? Do you remember Unit 4? It was about... That's right. Travel. Travel. One of my favorite topics. We learned about can and can't. Can and can't. For example, I can't speak Japanese. My friend can program a computer. Right? Can and can't. The ability to do something or not do something. We also used there is and there are to talk about what things are in, for example, a room. So, and we use this to talk about hotels and hotel rooms. So, for example, at the Hilton Tokyo, there is an indoor swimming pool, right? Because there's one. So we use there is, and there are 2 swimming pools. There are, because we're talking about 2 things, plural. And for our language focus, we did how to make bookings in a hotel and check travel arrangements. So that covers units 3 and 4. In Unit 5, we learned about food in different countries, food and entertaining. And for grammar, we did some and any. Some and any. So some in positive statements. There are some good restaurants downtown. Or to offer someone something. Would you like some more tea? And any for most questions. Do you have any pizza? Do you have any beef? Do you have any carrots, for example? And you can also use any in a negative statement. So we don't have any pizza. We don't have any pizza. And we did count and non-count nouns. Right? So if you can count the number of things, you use many. And if you can't count it, you use much. So many apples, right? Much time. Much rice. So how many hours do you work a week? How much money do you have? And we can use a lot for both of those cases, count and uncount. And then we did some decision making. So you're having a meeting, you're suggesting, giving opinions, agreeing and disagreeing with each other in the meeting. Moving on to Unit 6, that was about buying and selling. Buying and selling. So how to choose a product or service. And we used past simple for our grammar in this unit. And to talk about time references, right? For example, I went on a business trip in August. They worked on the sales campaign from February to March. Okay, so that's past simple and past time reference there. And then we described products, how to talk about a product. What does it have? What does it look like? What color is it? Talk about its size and weight, its features, how much it costs. Okay, so that covers units 5 and 6, and we have just 3 units left. Moving along to unit 7, which was, if you remember, about people in unit 7. So we talked about how you like to work, your preferences. Do you like to work alone, in a team? Do you like to work at home or in an office or outside? And of course, we described people, particularly personalities related to work. So some people might be ambitious or creative. They might be helpful or punctual. We learned lots of new adjectives there. For grammar, we did past simple with negatives and questions. So for example, I didn't like my colleague. There's a negative. And a question, did he leave the company, for example? Okay. And you can also, it's a little different with the verb to be. So for example, my friend wasn't good at his job, so he got fired. Or was Dan good at his job? No, he wasn't. All right. That included, so for question forms, we talked about starting with is or can, with the to be verb or can verb or do verb for yes and no questions. So is he creative? Can she do it? Do they work hard, for example? Okay, that brings us to unit 8, which was about advertising. And in this one we used comparatives and superlatives to describe products. Comparatives and superlatives. So if you remember comparative, you're just talking about two things. So this one is better than this one, or A is more expensive than B. And superlatives are for 3 or more things, where you say this one is the largest, this one is the best, this one is the cheapest, etc. We did much and a lot or a little and a bit to help us compare things. So for example, a Matiz is much cheaper than a Genesis, right? Or a Chevy Spark is a bit more expensive than a Kia Morning. Okay. We also did how to participate in discussions, to ask for an opinion or make a suggestion, and give an opinion whether you agree or disagree with the other person. That brings us to unit 9, the last unit we've done, and that was about companies. I know some of you are iPhone fans, so I thought I would include this little picture of an Apple store here. With companies, we described companies. what they do, for example, how many employees they have, things like that. And we used for our grammar, we use the present continuous tense. Right? So something that is happening now or a temporary situation. So, for example, what is John doing now? That's an example of happening now situation. Or if you want to do an example of the temporary situation, like costs are lower in Vietnam, so we're moving production there. Maybe not forever, but for a short time. Okay, so that brings me to the end of this review. In the next slide, I'm going to give you a bit of information about the rest of the semester, and that will be it for today. Okay, so that completes our review of units 1 through 9. Just a couple of final things I want to mention. Starting in week 10, which would be May 18th, we're going to be meeting in real time. I will not be making PowerPoints anymore or videos anymore. You're going to need to log into the video conferencing platform called Zoom, which I already sent you a Kakao message about, and we will all meet there, and we're going to do our speaking practice. We'll go back over units 1 through 10 and do those activities, the speaking activities that we have not had a chance to do yet. So you've spent a lot of time learning the language that you need, but you haven't had really a chance to practice using it in real life yet. So we're going to be doing that from week 10, May 18th. Make sure you download Zoom as soon as possible and start looking around. It's very easy to use. I'm sure you are all pretty tech savvy, better than I am, so I'm sure it will not be hard for you at all. If you have a problem with it or a question, be sure to send me a message well before May 18th so that we can get it working for you. And that's it. Again, I know that most of you are not watching these lectures because of the comments I'm seeing this morning from Unit 8. No one has commented properly yet, so that tells me that you're not watching the full lecture, because in the lecture I told you specifically what type of comment I wanted, and no one has done that. So hopefully that changes for next week. Next week will be our final PowerPoint lecture before moving into the Zoom real-time classes. So with that, I'll say goodbye. Thanks again for your attention, and I look forward to meeting you soon in Zoom. Bye now.